Welcome back to the Auto Tech Show. I'm your host, Mark Babin, and today we're doing something a little differently. Over the past years and 69 episodes, we've had some incredible conversations with leaders across the automotive world. Shop owners, educators, innovators, and technologists, each of them sharing their perspective on the future of servicing, repair, and shop technology. So today, I'm joined by the founder and co-CEO here at Anyline, Lukas Kinigadner, to look back on some of the most powerful, surprising, and even controversial moments from those conversations. Together, we'll reflect on what they mean for our industry right now and where things are headed in the future. Whether it's mechanic education, service transparency, or how technology is reshaping the way we fix and maintain vehicles, think of this episode as a highlight reel with commentary, an opportunity to pause, reflect, and ask, what does all of this really mean for the future of automotive service? So with that introduction done, Lukas, thank you so much for joining me. It's great to have you on the show today. Really looking forward to getting some of these insights and obviously diving into the topics. But before we do, obviously, lots of conversations have been going on over the past years, past 5 years, past 10 years since this technology and since we've been involved in helping the automotive world. How have you seen those conversations shift over those years?
So one major development which can be seen throughout all those conversations is that although in a moment people believe that innovation and the future is something which is very far ahead, now with all that past experiences, we see it's actually you're already on the footstore of
it's
it,
here.
right? It's here. And so it's always funny to reflect on those conversations in the past where people were still not excited enough about it, or maybe had some concerns about the innovation going on in the space. But here we are, and so much stuff is happening, and everybody's super excited about it. So that's I think that's mentionable, yeah.
And it's also an important thing to reflect on as we go through this conversation today, what you just said, that obviously the technology here today is stuff that's been developed in the past, but the stuff that we see in the future, what seems to be on the horizon, is perhaps not as far as we once imagined it. Absolutely.
And I mean, that's very human. People always underestimate what can happen in a certain period of time.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same in that space as well, yeah.
I agree. So let's jump into it. Obviously, we're going to look back on a few episodes that we've done in the past over the past years and sort of bring up some of those key moments that when I was reflecting on this episode and this topic, moments that stuck out to me and still stick with me. And I'd love sort of your commentary on that, and we can discuss a little bit around that topic. That sound all right?
Yeah, I'm excited.
So the first episode I want to jump back to, and obviously we've done 69 episodes, which is incredible on its own. And I want to jump back to an episode 63, where I spoke with the CEO at Rev, Adi Bathla. Now, Rev is a service center software provider based in California. And it was a really good talk. It was about 50 minutes. We could have gone on for much longer. It was a really, really great discussion and a great podcast. But in part of the conversation, we talked about the shift from paper to digital. And this is what Adi had to share on that specific point.
I grew up with some values which are dear to me. Things like don't chase money, bring value to society, and the rest follows. And bring technology to industries that still run on pen and paper. That's where it's the most needed. Mm-hmm. And with this tectonic shift that's happening and the magnitude of the tectonic shift that we're seeing today, that has opened the doors for software innovation on the shop floor.
So I love this quote for a number of reasons. I think it really hits home to a core fundamental value when we talk about this shift. But Lukas, from your view, and I'll get your thoughts on the actual quote itself, but I want to know how big of a barrier you think analog thinking is in an industry that's essentially gone digital by default now. Can the back office keep up with the complexity of these cars if they have this analog thinking methodology still?
So I think that the service agents, the technicians, they are ready for it. I mean, they have been adapting to that anyway over the last decades. Also by dealing with all those enhancements in the automobile itself, they are ready. They want to grow. I believe what's holding us back is not the willingness of the transformation on the technician part, but the investment which has to be taken by the owner or by the corporate department, that investment in the future. And this is something where companies just have to double down on and will be rewarded afterwards once they did that. But from the conversations I had and the experiences we had, the willingness of the adaptation is actually remarkably high.
Really? So understanding that the people on the front line they're ready, but the companies aren't fully prepared for that investment. They don't expect that large of an investment to upgrade their services. So therefore they're stuck in that analog space. Exactly.
I mean, the shift from a analog workflow to a digital one is an investment, and often comes not in slices, but in a big chunk. That is, of course, something which has to be planned, budgeted, but there has to be a need for it. And if you experience how a technician works today in a workshop and how much already is digital when it comes down to the vehicle itself, it's evident that they have the willingness to go through that change. They have to, right? The question is, do they get the right tools, and do they get the right training, and do they get the ability to grow? Do they have the time? Can they invest in themselves to grow? And that's something which just costs a lot of time and money. And that's, I think, the reason why many, many, many people in that industry still work with pen and paper.
Do you feel like it's a case of, and we can all relate to this, when you buy something, you're trying to save money, maybe you don't get the premium version of it because you're not fully invested in it. You don't want to fully invest in it. You think you can get away with a cheaper version. If we apply that thinking to this tech space and bringing on digital tools and more innovative tools in the space, is it a case of what you're seeing where people are still maybe a bit hesitant, therefore not, and they're wasting time and money by having to get a tool, integrate it, it doesn't work, having to reinvest rather than just getting a premium thing right away?
Also, a great question, Mark. If you dense it down, if the value is clear to everyone, it's a no-brainer, right? There's a clear business case for investing, and therefore the price is not so relevant for the decision. But obviously, getting down to the real value of something, that's obviously challenging, a lot of work, and there are different values for different people. And so things which might look like a gadget to one is a game changer for the other. So it's all about education. It's about educating the industry of the value certain tools bring to the table.
Yeah, very good. I think that's a nice way to end that specific point. And it's right. It's how do companies like us, how do providers show that value that they're building and make it attainable to that the right prospect or the right business, I think is a really key point to bring up. That's really good. So let's move on to the next question and the next quote. Now we're going back a number of years now to episode 20, way back then. And we actually recorded this episode at SEMA Auto Show in Las Vegas on the show floor with Cecil Ballard. He's an automotive service legend, an educational legend in the States, and the CEO at the Institute for Automotive Business Excellence. Now, I remember this specific episode for a lot of reasons. Obviously, the conversations I had with Cecil were extremely educational, enlightening, insightful. I remember it for all of those elements, but also it happened right on the show floor where all the action was taking place at SEMA in Las Vegas. So that was really memorable for me. And part of the conversation that we highlighted was the importance between having a good connection with the technicians and the advisors, and that connection in general, where the gaps exist and so forth. So plenty of great moments from the show related to that, but this is the specific point I wanted to bring to today's talk.
And then, of course, you do have technology, which is kind of what we're here to talk about, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you bring certain technologies. You look at digital vehicle inspections. 10 years ago, nobody had it. Mm-hmm. And some guys were taking pictures, and some guys started sending videos, and all of a sudden somebody says, oh, that is a technology that would really help build customer value, trust, etc. And all of a sudden we have multiple DVI companies, and many shops are using them.
So obviously this is a line that really resonates with what we do here at Anyline. It really preaches the same value that we have when it comes to data transparency and having that relationship with customers. I want your thoughts on the quote itself again, but first, do you see this becoming a baseline expectation in modern servicing?
Wow. I mean, the quote is fantastic. And,
right.
And what it shows is that trust is a fundamental element in the industry. And obviously, to build trust, you need time. And with that changing industry, a golden standard from the past that your mechanic for maybe 2 decades, mm-hmm. and that you can rely on the information that mechanic gives you, that kind of golden standard also transforms into something else, right. Which is the ability to make choices by yourself in a fast-paced environment. That is something consumers nowadays appreciate a lot. And so that time which is needed to build that trust element is something which nowadays not many people have. And so the question is, what happens in an industry where that core element of building trust, which is time, is not available anymore? And with using tools like ours, using proof points, using evidence, using reports, you can build a great relationship based on transparency and based on information, which gives the consumer the ability to drive fast decisions, fast informed decisions. And that's what consumers want today. So absolutely, yeah, it's absolutely right.
On the consumer side, I think it's a big question, obviously, with vehicles becoming more technical, drivers maybe becoming less interested on the maintenance side. How important is it for them to understand what they're seeing and that be an easy thing to understand, not a complicated service document like we're all used to seeing where we can barely understand any word? How important is having something clear and concise in front of them so that they can make these decisions?
Yeah, I mean, it's crucial because that element of being able to quickly decide on matters, that's the key point. That's the key element everybody wants, right?
Yeah.
And every consumer, every person needs to have that kind of ability, and putting easy to understand, really thought through documents, or as you mentioned, videos, pictures in front of somebody, just makes that a lot easier. And that's obviously why the entire industry is driving towards that kind of trust building elements instead of using the one which previously was the golden standard, knowing someone for 50 or 30 years, right?
Yeah. And we still see that in a lot of the industry. And I think that's good that mechanics and technicians and advisors have built that relationship. But the reality is that is going to be overcome by the need for more proof, is at least how we see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And having, I guess, the right tools to do so is obviously the name of the game, and being able to provide that. A big thing that keeps coming up is the dealerships and the service centers and the tech's willingness to adopt these new solutions that can give it to them. Is it a case of you have to just deal with it, or is there more to the story?
Well, I mean, customer satisfaction is something which will decide how companies and shops and dealers react.
Right.
And what we see is that well-informed consumers are willing to come by more often. And those are the customers who get regulars, and you want to have regulars. So,
right.
Yeah.
So you need that. It's a case of, it's, again, coming back to that first point of our talk, this isn't a future thing. This is a now thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Good. Again, I want to move to a more recent episode. Coming back to episode 62, I had the pleasure to talk about the educational shift taking place in the industry, specifically here on the front line for techs and mechanics. We know there's a big gap when it comes to filling those roles. And I had the chance to speak with Jade Price. She's a frontline leader. She's an automotive social influencer with strong social platforms on TikTok, on LinkedIn. And she does work on the front line. So she's there to actually see the reality of what's happening. And we had a really good talk about this educational gap and what the work that she thinks can be done better to help those people on the front line. And this particular moment from this interview is a really great talk. I reference it a lot in episodes, but this particular moment stuck with me.
A lot of it's so much more technical now. And I don't think people realize you've got the guidance from dealerships where no matter what job you're doing, if you're unsure, there is programs that they have that gives you a step-by-step guide of how to do them.
So I think Jade absolutely nails it on the head here when it comes to that point on education. And Lukas, it sounds very simple in theory, and perhaps it should just be simple, but as someone who builds solutions and who builds tools in this space, how critical is design and the user interface when it comes to getting buy-in from the actual users on the front line, from the shops and operations managers themselves?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Such a great point. People are used to best-in-class experiences, right? And that's what the baseline nowadays is. And obviously, user experience and the way how tools work is one element of it. But training is crucial. However, what that all dances down to is something we have discussed a little earlier in that episode, where it comes about value. So the willingness to change and the willingness to spend time, learn, and grow in order to use tools and have supportive new sets of possibilities in a workshop. That is something people need to understand that that's valuable for them. Right. So the question everybody asks is, what's in it for me? What do I gain from it?
Selfishly, yeah.
And that's so exciting to see that companies who solve that problem, who can explain the users what's in it for them, see a much higher willingness to adopt. And this combined with a great experience means skyrocketing adoption. And it's as simple as that. Couldn't be more simple. But ultimately, getting that point through, getting the information around what's in it for the users, combine that with training and great UI, obviously it's a different story, right? That's super complex. But in general, it's not that complicated. If you give people a reason to use a tool and you make it sparkling awesome, then yeah, people will just adopt it. Yeah,
it has to be as simple as that. Can you just touch on, obviously, then the levels that you have the team go through to make sure that they fully understand? Obviously, there's a lot of research going on. There's a lot of test groups and a lot of these studies. How do you ensure that it is that simple, that it is, look, this is not complicated to use, this does exactly what you need, and it's easy for adoption? So what are those kind of like most important steps that you see being taken and that perhaps others can adopt as well?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one not so obvious point is that the most fundamental thing you have to get right is to set the expectations right.
Agree.
So if you tell someone, hey, you can use that tool without any training, without, not watching any video, without just like using it, then people will expect that it's going to work
out of the
exactly
box.
Like that. If you tell someone, well, it's a great tool, you have that certain kind of values, right? Those are the three things which will make your life easier, but you have to invest 50 minutes of your time to unlock that. People are willing to spend those 50 minutes if they know what their value is.
But setting that expectation.
Exactly. And if you don't set that expectation right, then it's going to be difficult down the road. But also, if you think about it, the communication of the value is one part of it. And obviously, different personas have different values. Yeah. So by communicating corporate values to service agents, that might not be useful at all, right? You have to really think about what's the real value for that person using that tool in order to unlock the willingness to change.
And I think an interesting learning there as well is it's not a one-size-fits-all answer. Even within, there's so many different elements to the industry, and a lot of those listening will be in those different elements, whether you're fleet, whether you're warehouse, whether you're service or retail or dealer groups. But even within those subgroups, those value points are different to each person. How important is it to understand that and be able to communicate that?
Most critical, Mark, most critical. I think that if you don't truly understand what your offering brings to the table, it's very hard to convince someone to use it or buy it, right? And the real difficult thing for us, for example, is to not try to solve all problems at once, but to focus on certain verticals, on certain areas in the industry and educate those and move forward and educate more, but use the resources we have really precisely to answer one's verticals or one area's biggest pain points and then move on and move on and move on. I think that's critical for us. Yeah.
And it's a mature way to approach it. Perhaps something that younger companies won't have the patience for. They'll just want to go and solve everyone's problem at once. So that's absolutely a very mature decision and a mature direction to take. It obviously took time to get there, but it's working.
Yeah. And it's tempting to do everything at once. And we see that the potential of what we do here is so massive and there's so much excitement about it. Obviously, we want to make everyone use our software, our tools, but one at a time. Yeah.
Yeah. Patience and taking the time to really understand and achieve one step at a time, I think is a super great point. I've got one more great quote, if I can, Lukas, that I'd love your opinion and your thoughts around. And we're going to head back to SEMA and Las Vegas. This was last year at the show. We had a beautiful studio high above the show floor, great views, great conversations. We recorded actually 5 great episodes. This particular one, episode 48, we spoke with Brandon Matthews from Opus IVS. They have a really cool, innovative platform that actually links up service techs with other service techs more remotely to help them troubleshoot maybe more key or critical problems, to help those technicians service in real time and support them in that aspect. So it's a really cool solution and service that they offer. And we had a really great talk. We spoke about the gap between technicians and technology. We touched on the resistance that we sometimes see with new solutions and really trying to understand that a little bit more. And here's what Brandon had to share on that topic and the quote I'd love your thoughts on. Do you find in the conversations with techs that they're accepting of this help, or is there a bit of resistance still?
It depends. There's definitely a lot of type A personalities as technicians, right? But I think that most of them can be humble enough that they know not everyone knows everything, right? I've been in the BMW field for a long time, and I'm still learning every day. At some point, the technician will always humble themselves, and there'll be a breakthrough, right?
So absolutely 100% fair and a justified comment to make. But it brings up the question, Lukas, and this is what I want your thoughts on. Is a bad rollout of a new solution the real enemy of tech adoption in shops? Can a really great solution, one with all the bells and whistles, really have its fate decided in that opening rollout phase and how it's brought to the users?
Yeah, I mean, the point is 100% valid.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's remind ourselves that technicians want to get the job done fast and properly. That's what they do.
At its core, yeah.
That's what they bring to the table, right?
Yeah.
So if something helps their cause, they will be willing to adapt, for sure. So also here, I think most importantly is that if the technician doesn't see what's in it for him, it's very hard for him to evaluate if it's worth the time spent or the investment spent. And on the other hand, it's super critical that rollouts not fail so often because of the tool or the technology, but the communication.
Yeah.
Right. So is all of that communicated well? And so I would say communication is one of the key elements. And yes, if that's not done right, Mark, you're right. That can kill a rollout, right? That absolutely can make it almost impossible to roll out a fantastic solution if that's not done right.
And I think there's examples of that in other industries around the world with technology that could have succeeded on paper, was perhaps better than what did succeed. But because of, again, coming back to setting expectations, communication point, like you just mentioned, those didn't make it across the finish line, whereas maybe another tool did because they managed those steps better. And I think that's the case that we're kind of seeing with so many solutions now, so many different pieces of technology everyone wants in the shop. But to get those early steps right is critical, like you said.
Absolutely. And one further point is the incentivization. That's something which also has a huge impact on the willingness to adopt to a certain solution.
Right.
So incentivization always is part of a rollout, should be part of a rollout. How is that person who is using it incentivized? Does he have a clear understanding what he will get out of it also money-wise, right? And that's often something which doesn't directly come along with the project itself, with the rollout. It's sometimes not discussed with the technicians, with the service agents, and should be, right? Should be, just makes the world easier. Absolutely. If everybody knows what's going on there.
Absolutely agree. Listen, this is great. I don't want to take more time than I have to. I know it's a busy day for you, but thanks for the chat. Thanks for the look back and the reflection. I really appreciate your insights on the topic, and hopefully everyone has a little bit of relatability to those points as well. So Lukas, thank you.
Mark, thanks for having me.
And to everyone watching and listening to this episode of the Auto Tech Show, hopefully you enjoyed this format, this look back, this highlight reel from past episodes. Let me know if you enjoyed it. Maybe we bring back more, get some more insights, more experts to have these sort of opinion thoughts on. But again, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions or comments about what you heard today on the show, definitely let us know. Head down to the comments and reach out. There'll be links for both Lukas and myself there. You can reach out directly. Let us know in the comments as well of the video or the audio that you're watching, and we'll address them. You never know. Future episodes always come from these great ideas that you guys bring to us. So definitely head down there if you have any questions. As well, we'll put links for the episodes that we referenced in the notes section in the podcast notes below. Please definitely, if you're interested, go back and listen to them. Some really great talks from some inspiring innovators and leaders in the space. So definitely go check that out as well. But with that, we'll bring this episode of the Auto Tech Show to a close. Thank you so much again all for joining us today. Wishing you a great day in the world wherever you may be. We'll be back very soon with a new episode. But until then, wishing you all the best. Bye for now.